On December 25, 2021, a European Ariane 5 rocket rose into the sky from the spaceport in French Guiana. On board was the most expensive telescope ever built by mankind. After several delays, James Webb finally began his journey into space. At that time, no one suspected what was to happen just a few months later. James Webb fascinated, shocked, and exposed all current theories about the origin and nature of the cosmos as wrong. What this now means concretely for natural science and the future of mankind, let's take a look now. Webb's journey into space. Webb had become a nuisance long before the most expensive telescope of all time even got off the ground. Technical problems drove up construction costs, and the US Senate was on the verge of stopping the project. But the decision had not been up to the Americans or NASA for a long time. From the very beginning, the new space telescope was a joint project of NASA, ESA, and the Canadian Space Agency. They stuck together, and together the nations shouldered all the additional costs required. On December 25, 2021, the telescope lifted off aboard an Ariane launch vehicle from Europe's Kourou Cosmodrome in French Guiana. A powerful Ariane 5 and Guiana were chosen because the quality of the rocket and the location of the launch site near the equator were just too ideal for getting an object weighing several tons, such as James Webb, to its terminus at the second Lagrange point, L2, more than 1 billion kilometers from Earth, quickly and easily, save about 15% of the new telescope's observing time. With a thrust of about 13,800 to 13,900 kilonewtons, it lifted off at 12:20 p.m. local time. 3 minutes after launch, the rocket separated its first fairing. After another 10 minutes, James Webb was tethered only to the ESC-A upper stage, and after another phase of acceleration from the rocket, the telescope separated completely. Hovering in Earth orbit, James Webb slowly opened its solar sails. To give the telescope the necessary streamlining and protection during launch, engineers designed all of the telescope's components, mirror, and power supply to fold away during launch. By the time the ESC-A upper stage engine shut down, the telescope had reached a speed of 9.90 kilometers per second. After separating from the rocket, James Webb was already slowing down and ready to open the solar panels. With the power supply open, NASA made an initial course correction. The full deployment was complete on January 8, 2022. The telescope now orbits at a speed of 727 kilometers per hour in a halo orbit around the outer Lagrangian point, L2, about 1.5 million kilometers above the Earth's night side. By comparison, the Hubble telescope orbits the Earth in an orbit of only 547 kilometers. James Webb's location was purposely chosen far out in space to reduce atmospheric interference and absorption of certain wavelengths of light due to its proximity to Earth. Journey to the dawn of the universe. Through the James Webb Space Telescope, it should become possible to look even deeper and even farther back in the universe and observe what occurred shortly after the Big Bang. Researchers hoped for clues to the formation and evolution of galaxies, stars, and planetary systems. In addition, other mission goals include observing dark matter, dark energy, and detecting and analyzing exoplanets. NASA called the mission a journey to the dawn of the universe and was apparently quite wrong. But nobody could have known that when the telescope was launched. Even one of the first images, published in the summer of 2022, was shocking. Since then, the hypothesis of the Big Bang has been disproved. Instead of finding fewer and smaller galaxies as he looked back in time, James Webb discovered giant galaxies that already existed 200 to 400 million years after the Big Bang. This cannot be, according to the previous theories of the origin of the universe. At that time, there should have been only some star systems and first groupings of stars. The concept of the Big Bang was considered for about 100 years as an almost irrefutable truth, although the theory could never be proven by real observations. The theory of the Big Bang goes back to the work of the astronomer and former clergyman Georges Lemaitre. In 1927, he came to the conclusion that the universe originated from a single point. According to Lemaitre's idea, the universe evolved over a period of about 13.8 billion years, expanding to its current size after a single initial event. Observations of the motions of galaxies and the currents of the cosmic background radiation seemed to confirm this view, and it looked quite likely that the universe would continue to expand in the future. The explorer Edwin Hubble, after whom the Hubble telescope was named, built on Lemaitrè's reasoning. Hubble discovered that other galaxies were moving away from us, and that distant galaxies were moving faster than nearby ones. This led the astronomer to conclude that the universe, as Lemaitre depicted it, was still expanding. Since the objects in the cosmos were moving apart in a certain way, this indicated that everything had been close before. According to the Big Bang Theory, in the beginning, the universe consisted of incredibly hot tiny particles mixed with light and energy. As these primordial particles spread through space, the universe cooled. The tiny particles then transformed into atoms, which eventually became the stars and galaxies we know today. Planets were formed from the remnants of the dust disks from which stars had formed. Stars came together in groups. These merged to form galaxies, and galaxies formed clusters of galaxies. Other objects such as asteroids, comets, and black holes also formed. All this happened over a period of about 14 billion years. But now, scientists must realize that something is wrong with this theory. The evidence no longer allows excuses. Science is in trouble. While the general public was mesmerized by the beauty of the new photos, scientists got into serious trouble by these first shots. Still, some scientists are trying to wiggle out of it, saying the blurry points of light in the image may not be galaxies at all, but supermassive black holes. But here too, a problem emerges. Supermassive black holes as well should not have existed at all at this distance and time. Some of the researchers, who cannot come to terms with the new facts, hope for errors in the measurements of the age of the galaxies. A check of the dating with the best and most powerful telescopes, which are distributed over the globe, has confirmed the age in the meantime, however. But the problems of science go even further, because the apparent expansion of the universe could be a strange, optical illusion. The fact is, objects in space, such as galaxies, do not appear to shrink as their distance increases. In fact, beyond a certain point, they should appear larger and larger as their brightness decreases. If anything, the representation of galaxies in the new telescope's images show signs of non-expanding space, and that's a problem. Another indication that all theories about the origin of the cosmos were wrong are the high density and degree of order of the newly discovered very old galaxies. First galaxies, which were formed by many collisions of smaller galaxies, should show signs of these collisions. The James Webb Telescope, on the other hand, shows galaxies in the shape of incredibly smooth disks and in immaculate spiral patterns. Their appearance and that of our galaxies today are similar. The data showed that at the time incorrectly called the cosmic dawn, there were about 10 times as many smooth spiral galaxies as the theory predicted. Another problem is that, according to previous theories, galaxies cannot grow to the size that these galaxies have without collisions. But how else can these perfect and very old galaxies be explained? Scientists must now take a stand and consider that the universe is much older than previously thought and that the Big Bang may never have happened. Unique technology. Now you may be wondering how scientists can possibly draw all this information from these blurry specks of light. It's a fair question, but it's also an easy one to answer. The James Webb Telescope uses a collection of filters to capture images in the infrared region of the spectrum. This allows astronomers to detect the color of distant galaxies. The color frequencies tell astronomers to determine the age of stars in those galaxies. Cooler stars are yellow or red, while blazing hot stars are blue. Distant objects appear red on the deep field image, while nearby ones are white or bluish. From this bit of light, the telescope's filters can pick out individual frequency and wave patterns to determine details about the size, luminosity, number of stars, and density. This image was created by a long-term observation of a quadrant in space that contains very few luminous objects in the foreground. This makes the light rays of the galaxies in the background visible. Due to the curvature of space, objects far in the background are sometimes greatly magnified. So, this image shows only a small part of the universe and was taken in a certain direction. Hubble had already produced a similar image, But at that time, the sharpness and the possibilities of interpretation were by far not as good as now with the new telescope. In the future, there will probably be more images like this to check the time 13.5 or more billion years ago from another perspective. At the moment, we don't know when that will be. James Webb's observing times were already fixed 2 to 3 years in advance. What will the future bring? Researchers will certainly try to look even further back in time to gain certainty about the new situation. Normally, there should not have been much where perfect galaxies have now appeared. Still further back, the universe would have to become darker and darker if there was the Big Bang. Because the first million years, there was probably no light in the cosmos. Where no light is emitted, even with the best telescopes, we can discover nothing. The range of James Webb was given with at least 13.5 billion years. The Big Bang is said to have occurred 13.8 billion years ago. Scientists will try to get everything out of the telescope's range and look as far back as possible. If more and more galaxies show up, which already existed and were rich in stars, scientists can be sure the Big Bang did not happen. We'll keep you posted, and thank you for your interest in watching. Tell us what you think about this discovery. And do you think these findings are worth the $10 billion construction costs that James Webb gobbled up?